Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're looking at Portal Revolution. This is a 2024, early January 6th, 2024 release of a mod around Portal. Really, probably Portal 2. I think you'd probably have to own Portal 2 to really play the mod. And yeah, we've covered a couple of small, almost indie, or sort of indie, single A games from 2017 that are puzzle games. So this is going to be a very unfair comparison, certainly. There is certainly something different in this mod in that you have, compared to most of Valve's games, a more optimized interface. It seems like it's even giving itself credits there. So you can see at the very bottom left, video game action election interface. Maybe that is silliness, but also this has Steam input support, so no longer are games encouraged, at least, to use DirectX or well, I guess it would be DirectX's spin-off Direct Input for Xbox controllers or custom controller support. Instead, Steam input is the next generation, trying to balance things out a little bit better to make sure that inputs from their own Steam Deck, from Xbox controllers, and most notably way more support for PlayStation controllers will be supported. The interface feels nicely scaled up for me looking at the TV from 8 feet away, which is not normally how you'd expect people to play, but it is honestly something you should work for. Now, I am noticing here that the mouse and keyboard inputs are still labeled, so we've got that, but when we also have controller adjustments here, and clearly Steam input would be helpful if we saw it in all games, and if it was just kind of automatic in all games. Unfortunately, for the last two puzzle games I've played, they've been mouse and keyboard, although in fairness, only Rethink really needed controller support. Puzzle Chambers was a top-down mouse-only game, really, so it didn't matter too much. I've turned the music down from 75% by default into 50%, and everything else is pretty much, I think, where it's going to be. Interesting, we have, certainly with a modern game, a modern frame rate slider here, with the max number of frame rates being 400, which is way more than I'd ever record. We have laptop power savings and prevent threading specific CPU threads from going to sleep. There are usually 2 threads per CPU, although they are potentially going to change that. We have auto detected very high with the dynamic sunlight, and we have auto detected high with the model and texture detail. Effect detail is at auto detect, which maybe that means it will go up and down when needed. And then auto detected maximum MSAA, auto detected trilinear instead of going anisotropic 16x, which I'd assume that anisotropic even 2x is better than trilinear, but who knows. Let's just leave it alone. I have a good video card, certainly, but we definitely, as they keep on making new hardware, they keep on making games to push the hardware. Motion blur being disabled is my general preference, and FXAA anti-aliasing could be enabled, but let's just leave it off. And then high dynamic range tone mapping is enabled when it probably shouldn't be, but we'll leave it on. Color correction is on. So a nice collection of settings there, but not a ridiculous amount of settings either. Like, that didn't take 10 minutes to go through all of it. This is a game that claims to be 8 hours long and have 40 puzzles. There were 40 puzzles in the new and 40 puzzles. Well, there were 38 puzzles in the new version of Rethink. There were 40 puzzles in the old version of Rethink. So roughly 80 puzzles, really, even though there was a lot of repetition there. But again, I have to point out that the comparison is going to be night and day different, because the factor here is that you had the likes of Valve already make the general setting, the general story, the general art and sound effects for Portal. Making a mod for a single game is way easier than going even to a Unity asset store and then finding a specific model for a wall panel or a table lamp or anything that you might just use to decorate. And that creates, for Portal games, they really can't even get that crazy. If all of a sudden we started to have something that looked out of place, it would just be off-putting. So chapter 1, human resources, entire chapters. One thing we want to keep an eye here is just seeing how fast things load, and that was not instantaneous but pretty snappy. So we're waking up in the same room effectively that you woke up in Portal 2, which tells us there's a likelihood that the events that are occurring here are going to be in between the timeline of Portal 1 and then far, far in the future as far as Portal 2 goes. Portal 2, the facility was completely collapsed, hundreds of years in the future. So it would be difficult to make a Portal 3.
Good morning, test subject. You have been in suspension for 72 days. The Aperture Science Computer-Aided Enrichment Center congratulates you on your 36-year sleep anniversary. You have been selected as a potential candidate for our Human Emergency Response Team. Please review the agreement provided on the nearby monitor.
So we have different voice actors, and yeah, because it's a mod, pretty much all of this is going to be different voice actors, different writers, but being set in the Portal universe gives us more Portal. In all fairness, I would much prefer to play Portal 3. There's just no other game that I even bother to play fan mods for, because it's really, with Steam Direct in particular, just not a case that you need to play a mod for a game when you really should just be making your own games. But yeah, we're highly unlikely to see a Portal 3. I can see some jagginess here. And this room is kind of a weird example of assets that are in Portal that you just won't likely see. We'll probably never see this desk, never see these tables, this bed, never see this refrigerator and microwave. We have an actual working mirror, so we can very quickly know that we are not playing as Chell, although it is a little weird. Looking straight on feels a little off to me. It feels like the camera is perhaps slightly over your shoulder more than directly behind the center of your head.
To be accepted into the Human Emergency Response Team, you will now participate in an advanced difficulty testing track where your problem-solving skills, athleticism, and response to increasingly hazardous conditions will be evaluated. Please press the button to accept the terms.
So we are signing up to potentially be a worker bee for the robot, whoever is in charge.
Thank you for volunteering. The door will open in 3,
we get an achievement
2,
for volunteering.
1.
So this is more what we're going to see. Now it is worth pointing out, I think, that while these graphics look great, if you're going to make a Portal 3, there really would have to be a revolution, pardon the pun, of the texture detail. This comes off in 2024 as being a little cartoony when looking at the textures on these rails, and a little repetitive when looking at the textures on these panels. And I doubt there's anything like ray tracing or modern lighting elements, modern reflectivity. Yeah, Portal 2 is old enough. Knowing the name, we can see some blue bounce gel there, which the fact that we can see blue bounce gel would imply that this is actually happening after at least some part of the events of the Portal 2, because all the gels were locked away. But maybe in this story we are going to cause a revolution. We're going to cause the beginning of the downfall of Aperture Science. It is also worth mentioning that all of this kind of backroom mechanics is in no way really implied in Portal 1. They definitely did a bait and switch there, where they expanded the look of the facility. And I imagine if you were in Portal 3, there would just be a whole secondary facility, or there would just be such a change in timeline that the facility would have been modified drastically. We've got cracked glass, and we are entering Puzzle 0. Yes, and this is what we will see, I imagine, for the puzzles. Walking on the glass makes a glass breaking mechanic. The textures here look nice and sharp even when you're walking right up to them. Whereas in the first game this would have just been a blank white wall. It has more of a texture to it. We have our standard icons as far as what the puzzles are going to look like. It does seem weird though for the layout of that, in that we just walked out of our room and then walked around a little bit through an elevator, and now we're getting back on another elevator. So I almost expect this elevator to crash or something. Yeah, and these elevators are always designed to hide loads, but it's not successfully on my hardware,
Test
at least,
subjects may
actually hiding
experience symptoms
loads.
of mental defects after long-term chemically induced hibernation.
We have jump, we have zoom with the left bump, or right bump, right and left trigger not activated
brain
yet.
damage evaluation survey to determine just how damaged your brain is. If you believe your brain is sufficiently operational, press the button in front of you and continue the test.
So we
Very
have
good.
a B button.
Please walk through the portal and continue testing. Your self-reported status is more than sufficient for testing.
It's a little weird that they're bothering to do this, making it so you can see yourself in the portals. The mirror before could have just been that, but I guess they probably really do want you to recognize that you are not Shell. I guess the other question to ask is, do we have fall boots on? And it seems like we still do, although the fall boots look maybe a little different. And there we fell without taking any damage. And yeah, a lot of this is fairly unnecessary setups, as it were, because you're highly unlikely to play a mod of Portal 2 without having already played Portal 2. And I think mod is arguably even the wrong answer the wrong word to use. It probably should be better described as a fan sequel more than the mod. This should just reset, I imagine, the button. I wouldn't say that the controls feel particularly as smooth right now. I am playing with a new controller that I haven't used before, so Xbox Core controller, so maybe the controls are a little stiff to start off with, which would be a good thing. But when I'm turning, it feels like it's not really turning as fast as we need it to, or would want it to. I don't know if we actually need it to. Yep. We can hear the
Please be advised
music.
that noticeable damage to eyesight is not part of any test protocols, but is an unintended side effect of the Aperture Science Material Emancipation Grill, which in semi-rare cases may emancipate some of the light-sensing rods and cones inside your head.
It still feels like the audio changes a little too much when you walk from one room to another. And if you're gonna do that, you might as well just add speakers at some point, so that you know what the speakers are. This is basically where you get the portal in the first game, so not too much is changing here so far. Perhaps the walls are slightly more damaged. We're just waiting for this to spin around and shoot a portal here, which I imagine if we stood in the way wouldn't have changed anything.
You are now in possession of the Aperture Science handheld portal device. As a candidate for the Human Emergency Response Team, you are expected to adapt to all dangerous situations, and as such, will not be informed about the device's safety hazards.
Suppose that saves some repetitive dialogue. Certainly. But it does just seem a little repetitive and redundant to go through what are effectively just the same puzzles you would have done in the main games, either Portal 1 or Portal 2. It also, I guess it's worth pointing out that there's really only supposed to be like 2 prototypes of the portal gun. There aren't supposed to be a whole bunch of them.
Your performance in the next test chamber will be timed to measure puzzle solving and execution speed during extreme wind and weather conditions. In the rare case that wind and weather conditions appear to be ordinary, please stay idle in the entrance foyer until the desired conditions are met.
Wind and weather conditions, they say. We don't have the orange shot yet. Well, they've changed it up on me, thank goodness for that. Like, even having 2 puzzles that similar definitely felt like it was gonna be very repetitive. All I can do unless there's something back here I can shoot, which it doesn't really look like there is. There was a puzzle at one point where you would shoot yourself upward. It would be somewhat revolutionary, I suppose, if all of a sudden we did have... Interesting. Why is this yellow here? I assume this is possibly just a lighting issue. But yeah, it would be revolutionary if all of a sudden you are going back through the doors or finding cracks very early in the game. But if I make a portal here, the fizzler wall will break the portal. So getting the cube to the other side definitely just feels impossible. Unless we can figure out a way so things are not on the other side. Okay, I think I figured it out. It's been a while, I guess, since I've done a portal game. So what we want to do is just gently place that there, because we always have the orange there. Then we want to make this here, so then we can just pick it up and get around the wall. Now that dialogue really encouraged me to think differently, though, on that I possibly should just stand in one place and wait for the weather to change, even though that was pretty obviously a joke. And even in Portal 2, there was this real danger when you started to see the walls crumbled that you would make some general assumptions that weren't actually true as far as what the goal was or where you were supposed to go. Portal 1 definitely established that as an idea that you would break through the test chambers and try and escape them. That's fine and dandy for the beginning, but or for the first game that makes sense, but then once you establish that, you very quickly want to just repeat it in Portal 2. It makes an argument for a fan
And
sequel.
stop. Congratulations, test subject number 1. You have set the world record for this exercise, and now officially hold first and last place on the leaderboard.
So yeah, there was nobody else that had ever done it, and it doesn't actually mention the time. Definitely in Portal 3 they need to just have a non-noticeable loop when you're going through these elevators.
What do we have here?
Instead of going to a load screen. With that one line of dialogue, I automatically am now suspecting that somebody is literally talking to me and these aren't just pre-recorded
Next test may contain concentrated amounts of electromagnetic radiation
lines
that
of dialogue.
may be harmful to the retinas of some humans. The Enrichment Center recommends to solve this test with closed eyes, as health insurance will not be provided for this specific exercise. In case the light-sensing rods and cones of your eyes have previously been emancipated by an emancipation grill, feel free to ignore the prior warning.
So yeah, I'm definitely thinking we're going to end up playing as multiple characters, so we may get something as interesting is one of the characters actually being blinded. And this is new. And interesting, we are getting just full-on checkpointing of where we're dying and respawning, whereas I would have kind of thought it may have gone all the way back to the beginning of the level. This is new. This did not happen in Portal 2. A laser touching a blue fizzle wall, turning it into a death wall. Which that certainly changes things. We need that to be hit, which we can just put a portal there.
You have completed the test. If you have not done so already, you are permitted to open your eyes.
Yep. I really don't want to use the phrase the back rooms, but it is the appropriate way to describe this whole section of Aperture Science, which they haven't even really. Maybe they said Aperture Science right at the beginning, so this might not even be Aperture Science. That would be interesting, certainly, too, if there was just a completely different company that was stealing all the layout and facilities look of Aperture Science. Logically, Black Mesa would potentially have a
Before
facility.
starting with the next test chamber, we would like to remind you that, so far, no experiment has yet unproven whether or not weighted storage cubes are not incapable of not feeling pain when being emancipated.
double negative, triple negatives here. Yeah, it really is a unfair comparison to compare even this fan sequel to Rethink, considering how one game was made in 2017 and one game was made in 2024 or released in 2024. But certainly it has to be mentioned that one puzzle room here using the portal mechanics just has way more of a reason to exist in a 3D first-person perspective compared to Rethink, which has very little reason to exist in that format as just a game that would have worked just as well as a top-down 2D puzzle game. Let's see. Not sure where I went there, but I think I went to the wrong place. I think I'm supposed to go over here. That being said, it is also, I think, worth mentioning that there is a real lack of new content that you can kind of have in a Portal game. You all the programming, all the game testing, all of that has been programmed to use a blue and orange portal, the acceleration and the bouncing gel in Portal 2, and weighted companion cubes, and occasionally a laser deflector and lasers. Now, noticeably also, that is another comparison to make compared to Rethink, is that the new version of Rethink in particular is 100% just about making solving laser puzzles and doing absolutely nothing else. Now, in Portal 2, you would hit this and it would maybe bounce on you if it was a laser for a little bit. Here, I can just walk through it completely without it even making a sizzling sound effect or hurting me. You would have to stand in Portal 2 in the laser for quite a long time 30, 40 seconds before it actually would just give up and kill you. And they never did anything with the gameplay to actually make that an actual danger. Instead, hoping for the most part to have puzzles that could be solved, usually at a very slow pace, well, a thinking it out pace. Not, there are some places where you have to make jumps.
Well done,
but even the jumps,
you have successfully solved 5 test
tend
chambers.
not to
ensure
require
high quality of human resources, the following test chambers may include elements of danger. Extra caution is advised. Good luck.
I think this sludge looks way better than at least Portal 1, but it kind of seems better than Portal 2 also. And for science sake, let's just jump in here and see that we will instantly die in the sludge.
Well done, candidate.
Normally.
You have successfully solved 5 test chambers. To ensure a high quality of human resources, the following test chambers may include elements of danger. Extra caution is advised. Good luck.
So we'll walk over here. This is not in line with that. So we're not going to be flung through here and then land on the platform and then get an extra bit of fling to get that way. It's all going to be done instead in one movement, which means it doesn't matter that this is rotated this way instead of trying to shoot one that would be more rotated that way. This is a great example. I have no idea what this is though. It doesn't look like a camera. It doesn't look like a laser. Just looks like a weird thing. Yeah. Anyways, this is a great example of where you can add action and have more of a physical element to a puzzle game without really making it too difficult. Like, if I die, I reset here. Eventually, I imagine we'll run into some jumps that require a little bit more timing and do add some difficulty, but I can just die over and over again if need be. Then this is going to drop the cube and raise a platform. Interesting. The music here is playing from the cube. When I turn my head this way, I hear it in the right ear of my headphones. When I turn this way, I hear it in the left ear. It would be a decent twist to have a fan sequel that addressed what weighted companion cubes really are. They are obviously joke items that aren't supposed to really have a description. I always had my own theory that maybe a bunch of corpses of previous test subjects are being crammed into companion cubes, or even living test subjects are being crammed into companion cubes, but that's a little macabre.
On behalf of the Enrichment Center, I wish to apologize about the current state of our testing facility. Due to technical difficulties, we are unable to provide an experience of suitable quality at this time.
Here we have a warning that says do not touch glass, and interesting, I got some achievement either for pressing B and interacting with touching the glass, or I got an achievement just in general because we're moving the story along. We still are very much in that early spot in this game, but I imagine we'll start to eventually, once we get to puzzle 20 or so, we will, where is that going? Way over there, and then It just is bouncing off into the water. Yep. Puzzle 6 here. What puzzle are we actually at? They put the signs on the outside, which seems weird. This swaps where the portals are and opens the door. So we've got a timer that would keep the cube unusable. And then this would turn off this. And does it change anything else? Nope. Yeah, it changes that. Okay. So I've got to see this part, and maybe that's what they're trying to do more in this game, is highlight some things you should look for with some red elements. Although this doesn't really stand out any more than, say, that red button there or that red eye there does. So the trick is to get it bouncing back and forth, which is fine. Wait for the door. And then we want it to go up this direction and then fling that way. That will fling the cube this direction. Which I'm not sure it does too much for me. It almost seems like I need to let the box slide. Most of the times we've seen in Portal, they are stairs for that very specific reason. Yes, I could put the cube. I could put the cube on this button. I guess maybe that's the solution, because it really isn't sliding. That would be revolutionary. You certainly are setting a very high precedent here when you use the word in the revolution, that you're looking for something that would drastically change how the game plays, some new gameplay mechanic, some twist or trick. The only place I can put a portal, however, is here, which that doesn't help me any. And I don't know if this wouldn't just reset everything anyways. Maybe this won't destroy that cube. No, it won't. Okay. So one sends a laser cube, one sends a regular cube. So this time we want it to bounce up here, and then fling it this way. I'll just catch that in the air. Okay. We're gonna put it there eventually, but first we need to swap it around. There's definitely something to be said about the niceness of the level of difficulties in Portal games, particularly the official Portal 1 and 2, in that they are just kind of play tested to death, and interesting you can bump it that much. There aren't a lot of points where you're going to be super confused. They definitely are puzzles designed to be solved once and just move the story forward.
Not bad.
They don't want you to try and get stuck and waste a bunch of time. This game is already promising this looks like this is probably a new poster. This game is already promising 8 hours of gameplay, so I just don't feel like there's ever been a need in any Portal game, frankly, to drag things out or just make it ridiculously difficult. We'll take a chair with us, but I'm uncertain where we're going with the chair. Definitely feels like we're not really supposed to take the chair with us. And yeah, we are now in the observation sections of Portal. We can see a lot of computers are down. Just like the other Portal games, there are no other humans around. Although it does kind of feel like there might be humans around. Now, the official Portal 2 did end with releasing a bunch of cryogenically frozen humans that could be test subjects for GLaDOS. This looks like mostly gibberish for what I'm seeing. So it could be that this is being set after the events of Portal 2, in which more humans would be alive. Certainly, they opened themselves up to that possibility where all of humanity may have long since been defeated and killed by aliens in the Half-Life universe, which Portal is set in the Half-Life universe far in the future, which frankly doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's drop one of those over the edge. Then that gets destroyed at that point. So bringing humanity back would make a lot of sense. Although in all fairness, Half-Life Alyx in VR also establishes that the entire timeline may be rebooted and reset. Which I'd be happy if Valve wanted to do that, frankly. If they just wanted to make a new game called Half-Life that wasn't a fan project, like the game called Black Mesa, instead of the organization called Black Mesa. And if they just wanted to make a Half-Life 1 and then try and combine the events of Half-Life 2 Episode 1 and Half-Life 2 Episode 2 together into a Half-Life 2, and then at that point release a Half-Life 3, I think people would be fine with that too. Although I also kind of question whether there's any need to have any game called Half-Life other than just the fact that it's a name of a game people still recognize. Let's go ahead and save. Well, I guess I hit the wrong button there. Yeah. One of the things that's nice about the save system too, on top of the interface being very big and easy to read, is that it's taking screenshots when you do save, with which again should really just be default things. A lot of those functions really should just be built into Steam or Microsoft's interface as far as an Xbox console or PlayStation's interface. As far as a PlayStation console goes, it is still very ridiculous even now that we have games with very different looking interfaces, different buttons doing different things, and all of that could just be more standardized with a skinning function so it looked more in line with the game but still worked exactly the same. Particularly when you consider that's the bread and butter of Microsoft, and you always originally in Microsoft applications had a file menu, and there would almost always be an open button and a save button under the file menu in every single application, and there's always an X at the top right of a Windows window. Well, I think we've gone long enough. There's definitely a danger that these episodes could get really long as soon as we start hitting some real puzzles, and it doesn't seem like they're going to drag their feet to show us real puzzles. And it doesn't seem like they're going to really drag their feet to eventually have the story go in a different direction. I guess the worst case scenario that I imagine could happen right now is that we would just end up solving a lot of puzzles while still mostly just wandering around the facility and nothing really changes, which is fine. Even at that, it still is giving you 40 fan-made puzzles that would give you more of an experience around Portal 2. Now, had Portal Revolution or some of the other Portal fan mods come out, say, 6 weeks after the original release of Portal 2, that would have been a little too much. Just far too many puzzles at the same time. But it's not like competition is growing as far as 3D platforming puzzle games go. Nobody has figured out another system other than Portals in Portal game mods to actually compete with Portal in any real way. None that I've at least figured out and seen, and I've been keeping my eyes open. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.